Hello, my dear viewers. This is my first video in this new open space of the Rhythm School dedicated to Karmic political science and philosophy. Here, we will not just talk about historical and political events or figures. We will also explore the deep transcendental meanings behind them. We will look at what lesson God wants to teach us through certain events, and little by little, the picture of the world will appear as it really is, and not as the illusions of people shaped by social factors. Today, we will examine a very urgent topic in this current phase of history, the possible deterministically karmic consequences if Donald Trump comes to power as the 47th President of the United States. Who is he? This energetic, brave, and uncompromising person. Is he a blessing for America and for the whole world, or the opposite? Is he the Messiah or a provocateur, a peacemaker or a destroyer? Should Americans and many others on this planet be glad or afraid of his return to the White House? Should humanity rejoice or be fearful? And what can each of us do or not do in this situation? Which position toward Donald Trump is wise and proper from the viewpoint of transcendental political science and philosophy? Right now, we will analyze all of this in detail together. Is there a mission for Trump? Why did he manage to win the election, even though many did not expect it? How did he avoid assassination attempts and political persecution? Is this a miracle or luck? Or maybe the higher powers spared his life because he is a messiah, or because they want to punish humanity for its sins? Who is Donald Trump? In this series of videos about Donald Trump, let us first look at the question of whether he might be a missionary figure. And here we need to understand what Messiah means. From the point of view of transcendence, every person has a purpose. It is to learn as fully as possible the lessons that the soul came to this world to learn at its spiritual level. For this, each person is given special talents, abilities, personal qualities, temperament, and so on. The person's task is to carry out their purpose using all these gifts and to make themselves and the people around them better and more harmonious. But there are people who come into this world not only with the usual purpose what everyone has. Some people come with a mission. Such a mission is not just about the individual's personal life or their close family. This mission concerns changes on a planetary scale. These people come to create certain changes that will affect the fate of all humanity. It could be scientific discoveries, great work of art, new ideologies, or, of course, certain political decisions and events. Can a Messiah always do only wonderful and beneficial things? That depends on what kind of instrument in God's hands a person chooses to be. Whether we like it or not, we live in a wonderful and just divine matrix. As the Holy Scriptures say, not a single hair falls from a person's head without the will of our Heavenly Father. But God never punishes anyone. He only teaches. He gives the soul the outward circumstances of the material world that help it learn to love and accept this world. And since souls have free will, sometimes they can become so lost that the only way to cleanse and save them is when the body is deprived of comfort and well-being. If catastrophes or wars begin on earth, it is people themselves, through their spiritual choices, who make them possible according to the law of karmic determinism. And at those times in history when humanity moves very far from everything beautiful, natural, and bright, everything built into the divine matrix, God still continues to love us. And before a catastrophe becomes unavoidable, He sends strong energetic mission souls to Earth who can stop a catastrophe if they choose the light path of high service. But if they themselves fall into temptation, then I think you understand what might happen. Returning to Donald Trump, let us think, is he a messiah or not? For example, what points to missionary traits in him? There are many signs, but we will look at 10 of the most important according to the law of transcendental karmology. If at least 7 of them appear strongly, we can speak of a soul with a mission. So here they are. Sign 1. Appearance or beauty or something very striking that attract attention. Well, Trump is fairly handsome, noticeable, tall, with a nice smile and strong yet refined facial features. He has a strong gaze, with unnaturally signs of divine karmic mark. It seems nature gave special care here. Yes, sign 2. The appearance of his descendants and ancestors. This sign is also a match. All 5 of Donald's children are undoubtedly good looking and stand out from the average. And looking at photos, for example, of Donald's father in his youth, we also see a very noticeable and appealing appearance. Another interesting point is that his grandfather, who started the Trump's family's rise into business elites, and his father were not from an aristocratic class. Yet their facial features and the structure of their facial muscles look more like those of an aristocratic origin. This can be seen as evidence that nature was preparing a body for the incarnation of a missionary soul over a long period. This means that even long ago, the Earth's matrix planned for this soul to come with certain tasks on a global scale. Because the appearance of any messiah in politics, spirituality, art, or science is a very big job for the universe. Sign 3. Abilities of the family line and the individual. This refers to intelligence, the ability to learn, receive an education, become a professional in a beloved field, and achieve success in what the soul aims for. And here too, everything looks good with Donald himself, his children, and at least his father and grandfather as well. Sign 4. Level of energy. Another sign of a mission is a person's powerful energy and charisma. This can show itself in different ways, depending on which area of life the person will carry out the mission. It may be strong hypnotic influence, sexual attractiveness, slower aging, powerful public speaking, good health, or sometimes unusual endurance even without very strong health. By the way, this last one was noticed in Trump's grandfather. Donald Trump himself shows several qualities matching this missionary sign. Compared to many other people, he ages more slowly, still has a lot of energy and stamina at a very mature age. Even now, and certainly when he was younger, one can see his sexual attractiveness, no matter how one feels about him. Sign 5, Love and Family Values. Another important sign of being on a mission is always the relationship to family values and the history of strong feelings between a man and a woman, where love is placed above profit or convenience. This may be in the life of the Messiah or among his close ancestors. This is a very delicate topic. No one can truly see into people's real feelings for each other. So, regarding Donald himself, we will not dig too deeply, but we can mention well known facts about his grandfather's life as we are simply analyzing events known from the Trump family history. His grandfather returned to Germany from America with money, and before he was forced to return to America again, he married a simple girl. He really followed genuine feelings because, given how enterprising and interested in building wealth he was, one might expect him to look for a rich bride, but he did not. In principle, for a Messiah to appear in history, there must be strong feelings somewhere in the family line. The lives of the messiahs themselves are quite difficult, and they need luck for their mission to be combined with family life. Even so, family values are important for them. And we see that family is indeed important to Donald Trump, shown by how he treats his children also. If people on a mission do have children, this is very meaningful to them. And with Donald Trump, we certainly see a father who cares. His fatherly care and ambitions go hand in hand, which is not at all easy. Sign 6, Stories of Unusual Family Success. When researching karmically ordained missions, we look at the ancestor stories. We see unusual events there that show the family line change its typical fate in a surprising way. The story of his grandfather and father shows that Donald Trump might not have been in the White House at all. He could have been living somewhere in Germany in a family of average means. But karmically, everything went differently. So, for many decades, the family's progress was set up so that young Donald would rise into American elites and enter the White House twice. So that sign also holds true. Sign 7, the person's ambitions. Missionaries' ambitions often go far beyond what people expect from that family background, sometimes surprising or even shocking those nearby. They may appear unexpected and unpredictable. This happens because a missionary can go against established rules backed by higher support. For example, if a boy from an ordinary family who can barely read proclaims he will become a great scientist and eventually walks many kilometers in the snow to enroll in a university. That is one of the brightest examples of a missionary in science, Lomonosov. In Donald Trump's story, hardly anyone expected a flashy, successful businessman to want to go into politics, let alone become president. Donald did not come from a political background. He was rich and successful, but there was no political history in his family, no strong network in high level politics. Yet suddenly, not only does he decide to go into politics, he managed to become a top figure in world politics twice against huge obstacles. Here, we clearly see a sign that he came to overturn the existing world order. Whether this change will be positive or negative remains to be seen. Sign 8. Events that show providence intervening in the missionary's life or higher abilities up to the level of miracles. Well, we have not yet seen miracle like walking on water, and that is normal. Because if this is a mission, it is in a political social realm rather than purely spiritual, transcendental. Still, perhaps escaping assassination attempts can be considered part of this sign. Sign 9. The habit of following a chosen path to the end. Courage in going against established rules, determination, fearlessness, not limited oneself with existing dogmas, no fear of being misunderstood or not accepted, no fear of shocking people, plus the charisma to keep going, ignoring obstacles. This is extremely important for a missionary soul, or they would never be able to change anything on a global scale. And we clearly see that in full here. Sign 10. A person's goals go far beyond the typical ideas of an ordinary person. Their soul cannot be content with what is offered. Its ambitions are global in the area where it wants to make changes. These changes affect the most transcendental values or the laws of the universe. Or the person comes to bring new ones, or to protect and revive what was lost. For now, we can only say there are certain political statements that definitely shake the political world order, and we will look at those in later videos. So, whether we like it or not, Donald Trump matches to some extent all 10 points. It all sounds good, but hold on. Maybe it is too early to celebrate. Let us keep looking deeper. If Donald Trump is a messiah in the political world, does that mean he came to do only good things? Right now, perhaps that is even what he believes. But will his soul handle this big test? Will the changes he makes become a nightmare for humanity? If they take on dark, radical forms, we still do not have an answer to that. His soul is on a path, and how he follows that path depends on each of us, especially on his fellow citizens, on us Americans. What can I do? You might ask. What do you do for a family member, like a brother, who is going through hard trials? You can support him, not necessarily all his action, which might be right or wrong, but support his soul, which has taken on the courage to come into this world to change something big. Giving the soul your prayerful support is extremely important. And also, the spiritual purity and connection with God of every soul around the missionary soul is just as important. So, I emphasize once again, it is not about supporting all the decisions and actions of our president, but rather supporting his soul while keeping our own souls pure and loving. In the next episode, as promised, we will talk about the special features of Donald Trump's soul and why sometimes his statements and decisions sound strange or shocking or may contradict each other. A better understanding of the president's soul will help every American to support him on his mission. Stay with me. Subscribe to this new YouTube channel from the Rhythm School. There is much more interesting content coming, things you will never hear on other information platforms. Because here we do not just talk about events, we talk about their hidden meanings. And please support this video with a like, but of course only if it was really interesting and comfortable for you to spend time with me. Bye bye for now.